Alright guys, so welcome back to part 7 of Construct, our top-down RPG. Pretty pumped about this video specifically. We're going to be focusing a little bit on the enemy AI, creating just smarter ways to get our enemy to move. Last week we covered functions as well as the families. Now, functions, just to recap, that just allows us to globally work around with certain without having to rewrite certain events. So for argument's sake, I've got a enemy herd function in the function that we covered. If I go ahead and take this calling and put it, for instance, with other collisions, it'll end up calling this exact function without having to rewrite all these lines for every collision or every type of action we want to do. So this is a lot smart way, you could say, of coding and minimizing the events, keeping it tidy, and also allows us to, where we make one change here, it will apply to others. So if we have a flash based function, we could have the flashes and we can do all sorts of type of animations, and then that way we don't have to go and replicate it everywhere where we are running, for instance, this flash. So using functions is going to be critical in our builds moving forward. We're going to be covering a little bit again of that today, but the same sense today is the enemy AI. Now, not much has changed since our last video that we had. We basically are covering, just to show you quickly, the I've got the enemy. That's all I've done is just added a sprite to this enemy. I called that the enemy animations. Let me just correct that by putting an animation on this specific enemy one, and then I went ahead and created a new sprite for that, obviously, and then I called this the enemy bases, and then I basically pinned, as I did there in that video of animations, I pinned it to this block. So every tick, you'll see over here where it says every tick enemy, set the position to the base. So if I go ahead and run it, same setup, you'll see there's the little item. I've put the black block to hidden, and I can go ahead and obviously he's going to follow me very unnaturally, of course, because we've just got the move to movement. Okay, right, so the first thing we're going to do is just do a bit of tidying up. So currently, as you can see, we've got the move to movement on this enemy. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. So we're going to go to the behaviors, and I'm going to remove that behavior, but it's going to give me an error. So I'm just going to take it out here. Move to, I'm just going to remove that for now. And we're going to work with the enemy has line of sight. Okay, so we'll remove that in a while, but let's go ahead and just create the variables. So as you see, I've got an inherited instant variable that's coming from the enemy families, as we did in our last video. I'm going to go ahead and create some more. And yeah, I'm going to go and create direction, because I want to know which player the player is facing. I want to click that as a number, click OK. And then I also, no, let's make that a string, in fact. Let's just right click that, edit, let's make that a string. And I want to go and add also add a difference between the angle between the player itself. So let's call this player angle difference. Okay, player angle difference, and that we're going to make a string as well, I think. Let's do that. And what else do we need here that I think is going to be vital? Then we can go back and create also, no, that'll be fine. So let's work with those two. Right, the next thing we're going to do is now basically set the animations. It's quite critical. Oh, sorry, that's what I want to do, set a timer. Let's go create a state and a timer. Add instant variable, add new, and I'm going to call this state. What is the actual state of the player and what state it's in? So I'm going to make that a string. And then one last one, I want to call that a state timer. So let's create state underscore timer, and this we can make a number. Right, you'll see why, because I want to be able to time the time between the different states. Right, so yeah, we've got these different variables, and now we can basically work with it. So enemy, you'll notice that I'm not using families because I don't want it to apply to both enemies. I'm saying this enemy, so I am working with this specific enemy. Okay. Enemy has line sight of the base player. Go ahead and make an action. In this case, I'm going to say, firstly, let's check the timer first. So let's do that. But let's just make sure that the enemy is set to idle, which I think it is. So let's run it. Is he idling? Yep, he's idling, as you can see, and we've got that on a loop in his animation. Right. Now let's go ahead and set a sub event. Add a sub event. And I want to basically compare that variable. I want to just make sure that it is obviously less than -0.1 or 0. So I want to basically go enemy bases, well, in this case, just enemy base, compare a variable, compare an instant variable, And then I want to take the state timer is not equal to -1, because it can't be obviously less than -1. It's not equal to that. Then I can set the timer here, which I'm going to do. I'm just going to go enemy. I want to set that to DT, obviously delta. So let's just go enemy, set variable, set value on the timer, and I'm just going to create DT, right, at the time. Fantastic, right. So now that that's set, now we can basically go and check its value. So what I need to do now is on the enemy itself, enemy base, we've got now this inherited. So I'm going to go ahead and set the state to idle. This will stay here for this enemy, right? This we're going to leave to 0, that's fine. And what's going to happen is if I run it, I know that it will always be at idle before he sees me. So I know I can assume that he is going to be on idle because he hasn't seen me until I come past the wall. So we can go ahead and add another function. Let's add a new function, and we're going to call it enemy base. Yeah, let's take enemy base, and we're going to check the state of him to make sure that he is compare instance variable, and we're going to say state is equal to, and that will be a string, and we're going to say that it is idle, correct? Idle is idle, and let's click done. So now I've got this condition. Sorry, let's just move that up here. So we're looking up here. So we've got enemy state equals idle. We can go ahead and set the animation to idle. We just want to make sure that it is set. It's a default set to idle, but when we set it to walking, because we've got more than one animation, he's obviously not going to change back. So let's go ahead and set his animation. So we're going to go enemy animation, set animation. Probably should get that a bit of naming. Set animation to idle, and we should be good to go. So we know that if the state is idle, the specific variable, set the animation to idle. Just a clean way of doing it. So if I make the state walking, we set the animation to walking. But with the state, it allows me to check and compare between those instance variables. Right guys, so the next thing I want to do is I want to set the player by angle difference so that I can go ahead and set the direction. What this means is I'm going to run animations, and instead of typing which animation, I don't know if the enemy's moving left, if he's moving right, or up or down. So what we're going to do here is just add a separate event quickly for each. And let's go to system, let's type for each, right, for each, and let's choose our enemy bases, because we're referring to all the enemy bases. So we know at what angle he is from the player base. I want to add another condition here, which will be, in this case, because I wanted to apply to that he's on idle, I want to add another condition, and I want to say the enemy bases, compare value here, compare instance value, and I want to say state is equal to idle, obviously. Okay. So now my condition reads, all the enemies, if their state set to idle, set their angle for me so that I know if they are left, right, up or down, because we don't know now if he's up, down, left, right. So we don't know what animation to set if he's moving left or right. And yeah, we're basically going to just go add the action, and we can go basically the enemy bases. We're going to go set a value, set the value, and in this case we're going to set this player angle difference, which is a number. Now I'm going to copy and paste here. I've just typed this up to speed it up, but I'll read it to you as follows. So basically I'm setting the angle to the player base, which is the base here on the right hand side, the X to the Y, as well as the enemy base is X to the Y, comparing those two at a 360-degree angle, at a percentage, and then half that circumference. So if I go ahead and do that, theoretically, if I run this now in the debug, and I select the enemy bases, and I go ahead and select enemy base 1, which is this one, it'll be 0, which you'll see is 0, because I see there's a condition that says if an idle, and he's not currently in idle, he's in the walking mode. And if I click on this one, you'll see that it's got a player difference of 179. Now, as I move along, that's going to change. So I will know now at what degrees he's at, what angle he's at, that I know exactly how to make him turn or play that animation. So that's a vital thing. So the next thing we need to do is obviously now set that direction, which is that variable that we have here. You'll notice that it's blank, but we need to set it. So yeah, we can go ahead now quickly, and this will be a common. We'll use this as a common function for all our enemy AI. That's why I've got it all the enemy bases that we know where they all are at. So yeah, I'm just going to go add a sub event, and then in this case, I'm going to go system, and then I'm going to compare. Let's just type angle. I want to is within angle, is between angles. It's probably going to be this is within angle. So we're going to go angle 1, which obviously in this case would be the let's go the enemy bases dot player, which is that value, player angle of difference. So angle 1 is the one that we're saving, so all the enemy bases, and then within 45, it'll always be at 45, and in this case 270. Let's take the 270 because I know that will be up. Let's make that 270. So I'm comparing the angle, basically 45 degrees to 270, that we can go and set that to up. So let's just assume that that would be enemy bases again, set the value, and we can say set direction, and that's going to be up, right? So we know that that is up. Click done. Then I'm basically just going to copy paste this 4 times because there are 4 directions. So 270, 180 would be obviously left. 180 would be left. So that we can go change to left. Left. Then the next one is 90, if I'm not mistaken. 90 is obviously always down. Let's go change that to down. I'll get you guys to understand what I'm doing here. And then to 0, 45 to 0 would be right. Okay. So now if I move around, I should get these filled. If I'm on the left of him, I want the direction to say left. If I'm below him, I want it to say down. If I'm on the right hand side, right. You catch what I'm saying. So let's go ahead and test that theory. Debug layout. And we're going to basically do on the enemy bases. Select number 1, select number 2, sorry. And there it is. So as you can see, on the left hand side of him, I'm always going to be left within that angle. As I go down further, beneath him, I'm going to go to down. You see, now I know that I'm below him. So basically I'm saying his direction. So theoretically, if he was moving towards me, he'd be coming down. If I'm going to the right of him, he'd be coming right. And if I go above him, which I can't now, because I'll die if I touch him, he would be going up. Okay, so that's fantastic. So now I know what animation to play because I know that I know what his direction is based on where I am. That was the purpose of that. So this becomes what we call a common. So we can go ahead and say add event. We can click on, right click here again, click on a comment, and I'm going to say common direction for enemies, and that then I'm going to drag right above this. Let's do that. So now we know when we put this in our proper grouping that this is just a great way that we fill that we know exactly where all our enemy direction is in terms of facing. Great. Now you're probably asking why is it important? Basically comes down to the animation. If I click on the enemy animation, you'll see I've got a walking right and walking left. I get to make one event now because I passed this global variable, which is the directions. So assuming that I want to set now if the player is walking. So let's say, for instance, we've got the state. We're saying, look, there, on this idle, we are playing the idle animation. But let's say if the state changed. So let's say, we give it a sub-event for argument's sake. Add a sub-event, and we say in this one, player animation. Let's take a frame changed. On frame changed, right? It's our sub-event. Let's go and set the state. Let's change the state. Enemy state is the animations. Let's go ahead. The state, which will be the base. So we go enemy bases, set a value, and let's go ahead and change the state to walking. Just to give you an example here, to walking, right. So I get to just use one variable here, basically, and that is walking. But now if I want to, let's say that the state is, in other words, like this. I'm going to copy paste this, just delete this bottom one. Now that I've got the state, let's say it's equal walking, I need to play the walking animation. But how do I know which one to play? You see, I'd have to then say, if he's walking left, and I'd have all this code, if he's walking right, because of the animation. Now, it's so simple. Now I just get to do this. I get to go, he's walking, right? Maybe an underscore, because I have that in the name. I'll show you now. Put an and sign. And then I get to use the enemy's bases dot direction, which is that global variable that exists on my family. So if I look on my family again, there's the direction that I'm now setting, remember, based on this little function here down below. I now know exactly what animation to play. So the next thing now we need to do is basically to ensure that if I'm out of line of sight, he goes back to idle. So let's go ahead and delete this and then just copy the enemies. Right, we can use that because it's basically on the condition of this enemy. So I'll just use that global for now. And I'm going to set this back to idle. Now I don't have all the animations, but this should look like something like this, where basically he'll turn. So there he idles, he doesn't see me, he doesn't animate. Now we are down, and he's going to do no animation because we don't have the down. But if I go to the right of him, out of sight, sorry, let's go back to the idle. If I come down on him, he's going to turn. Okay, so it is working. It's just that I don't have the cancellation of that. So if I go up again, he should go back to idle, but he's just going to stand still because I don't have an idle right, an idle left. If you take a look at the animation itself, you'll see I just have idle, walk right, walk left. So I've got to go and set all these animations now accordingly, now that I do know what the enemy direction is, as well as the fact that if he goes back to the state of idle, that he idles in the basically facing the player to where the player was last seen. Right, so let's go and add the movement. So here we need to add an event because we're running the animation here. You can see when stage walking, play the animation. So let's go and say add enemy animation, and we're going to go on frame changed. Let's add another one, another condition, and let's go enemy animation, and then we check to see if it's finished or is playing. Is playing, and here we're going to select the walking animation, which is in fact, I'm just going to click done. I'm going to just copy it straight out to the save of time. So we're going to copy that animation, the enemy base walking animation, because we know that it's walking with the direction of the variable, the global variable. So here we've got this. Now we can go ahead and set the sine and the cosine, which is obviously sine the length of the opposite side, and then the length, it's basically the angle equal to the length of the adjacent side. Right, so we can go ahead and then just set that. So we do that because we know that we've got the 8 directional set with regards to the enemy behavior on top of enemies. So we've got the 8 directional. So let's go ahead and now set that. So we can go here, set the enemy base, because we're dealing with the base obviously here, and we can go ahead and say set the vector x, and we're going to then set that with cos, obviously the cosine, and then we're going to go cosine, and we're going to go angle, and then we're going to open a new bracket, and then we're going to just use self because we're referring to the object in question, self.x, and then comma self.y, and then we're going to comma against the player underscore base, as well as player, dot y, dot x, and then comma player underscore player base. Just tab it and it'll be a lot easier, player dot y, and then we can go ahead and close those off, as well as multiply that by 150. Right, so that's the first one. I'm just going to copy this out to make it a bit easier for the next one, and then we're just going to clone that. Let's just say add new, in fact, click on enemy base, and we can set the y, and that will be a sin, obviously, which will be the normal sign sin, and that should be sin, not with the e. There we go. Player base, player y, correct, fantastic. Now what should happen is, if we are inside the enemy shoots here, so I'm going to just drag this underneath this, if you don't mind, underneath this, because I want to make sure that's in the line of sight is the first condition. These are all sub conditions. So what should happen now is he should hop to us. Let's just take a look. And then we just need to set the speed of the hop, and we'll be good to go. Right, so he doesn't see me at first, but when I go out of line of sight, because I know the animations are playing, so if I go out, and if I come in, he's going to hop to me. And there he comes towards me, as you can see, which is fantastic. So we know that that's working. Now, a few things there that we need to do in this condition is basically we need to, obviously, once he's moving, we need to set the speed of this. Now, we could make an instance variable and then set the speed accordingly, have that preset, like we did here with the health. So we could go ahead here and say max speed, make that 60, because if we set it here in the behavior, it applies to all the enemies. So I would go ahead and add another variable, which we'll do in the next video, just to tie this up, and then also the different directions in terms of its animation we will go and set. That we'll do in the next one. But the next behavior we need to do is obviously to set that when he comes towards us, pause, and this is why we're using the timer. We want to have a pause between that, otherwise he's just going to keep crawling straight towards us, which is fine. But it would be nice if he has a couple of seconds pause, then run the time, reset the timer, and vice versa. So yeah, we can add another condition that on the end of this, so we can add a new event. Let's say below, and let's go. Yeah, we go enemy animation, and we're going to go on finished, and we're going to use obviously the walking animation, because that is the animation. I don't know why I put it over there. Should come over here. There we go, and right inside there, we can basically just copy this. No, okay, well that's it there. So on walking animation, sorry, let's copy that, go back onto the animation, just copy paste it there so we know it's busy doing this and it's completed. So that is while it was playing, and this is now it's finished. We can go ahead and set this back to idle. Okay, so we can go to our variable, or I can just copy it straight out here. Enemies. In this case, we probably just would want to use the enemy in question, and we can make that idle. Fantastic. And then we can also set the timer, the state timer of those enemies. Let's use the enemy base, in fact. Set the variable, set the value, and yeah, we're going to go set the timer back to 0 in case we use it. Right, so I'm going to just change this as well back to the enemy in question, just to make it a lot easier to understand. Right, so this enemy, after timer, send it back to idle. And then the last thing we want to do is just add another condition here, obviously pausing the random between that instant variable, which is the state timer. That's why we used it. I'm just going to add it over here, add another condition, and let's go enemy base, compare instant variable, take the state timer, and let's say this is greater or equal to, let's go with 0.5. This you can always change, guys, to whatever suits yourself. And then I'm going to plus a random number with it. Just go with 1 for now. Right, so that should be it. So basically we've got the F line inside. We obviously add the DT to the state timer. I had this set state timer originally, but I just changed this to DT. We then basically setting it to idle. Once the idle animation plays on frame, we then set it to walking. This is all within the line of sight of the player. Once the line of sight of the player is walking, we then set the direction, the animation, obviously, of the enemy towards the player. Yeah, we basically move it, and then furthermore, we set it to idle once it's completed. So he'll do like a slide. So let's take a look. So there's our player. He's coming down, and this little guy should slide down. And there it is. So you see he's got a bit of a pause, allowing it just a little bit more of a better feel opposed to him just chasing us, giving it a much nicer form of AI. Alright guys, so that is the tutorial for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I will eventually link the project in the description down below, so feel free to download it if you think I've missed something. Again, bearing in mind, guys, that the animations is critical. I've set the animations on the enemy. You will need to do the same. You can use the mirror as well. Our next video, we're going to be focusing a little bit more on effects, etc., as well as our other little character coming up with something different for him. And then we're going to begin the attack animations, which I'm really looking forward to. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.